And hello everyone, welcome back to your Tkinter tutorial. Today we will be learning how to get some basic user input, because we just need to get it at some point. Most applications exist out of user input. In fact, my IDE here, VS Code, exists entirely of just getting user input, which is, if you think about it, quite interesting. So let's set up our application from scratch again. This is just optional, but I do like to do it just so we can keep remembering what to type when we create in Tkinter program. So we can say from Tkinter import, and we just import everything. And we can specify root to be equal to tk, which is completely optional, but as always I do recommend you have that. And you can just say root.main loop, and you can just make sure everything runs by just running our Python file. As you can see, we get a little window, which means everything worked correctly. Okay, so we're going to basically get user input via an input box or an entry. So you might notice if you go to websites and you have to enter your password or your username, you type it into a little input box. That is basically what we're going to create today. So I'm going to say input is equal to an entry. An entry is just Tkinter's version of an input box. And we can specify that it should be attached to root, and we can then specify a width. I'm going to make that 50, and then we can just pack this to the screen. So input.pack, and now let's see what we get. And here we get a nice input box. We can click on it and we can put some text inside of it. That's pretty neat. So of course we can put some default text into it as well, because sometimes you do want to just have some default text for in case the user don't want to enter anything into it, or just need some sort of idea of what they should enter there. So we can then say input.insert, and this will insert values into the input. We're going to specify index 0 because it should start at the index of 0. Or you could specify probably like 1, 2, or 3, but that's not really required. We don't need those extra spaces. And then we can like specify Nick, for example, because let's say they want to enter we want them to insert their name, and Nick can be like a default name. As you can see now, Nick is in there, and we can modify that. Okay, so that is some basics of entries. Now let's actually use the entry as a function. So I'm going to just put that entry there. Then I'm going to say clicked, and clicked is going to contain a function with greet, and we can just say hello. Whoop, I just can't type today. Wow. And we want to be like hello and then their username that they entered here. So I'm just going to remove that default there because I don't quite want it, to be frank. Then we can also create a button. So if they click the button, this text should pop up. So I'm going to say btn. You can call it whatever you want. I'm just going to use something that's easy. That's going to be equal to a button connected to root. And then we can just maybe say text is equal to continue. Cool. And then we can just say btn.pack, and that's pretty cool. If you don't know how a button works, I do recommend you go watch my previous video. Now we have this. We have a button and we have an input. We can actually resize that input a little bit to be maybe like 20. And in here, we can go to this clicked here, and this is what's going to be called when they click the button. So I'm going to go here and say command is equal to click. Save that, and now if we click the button, nothing will happen. That is because we didn't really do anything, but now it works. We have connected this function to this button. Now I'm going to just pass in hello, and then to get the value instead of an input, you can just specify the variable, so inp dot get, and this will get the input from an input. So there we go. Now we want to put that on a label, and then we want to display it on the form. So you can say label is equal, or it's not equal, but it's positioned on root, and the text is equal to greet. And now here we can just, pack it, so .pack, and there we go. Now whenever we click the button, there should appear a label with the name that we entered here. So if I say Steve, continue, hello Steve. If I say Jack, continue, we get hello Jack. So that is pretty neat. So this is how you can use an input. So you just create a variable, and this is one of the places where using a variable is very useful, because then to get the value you can just call upon the variable to get that value. Anyhow, and even when we click the button, it calls this function, and this function just basically prints out this text here. So hello Steve, hello Jack, whatever we put inside of here. You can do more with inputs, such as giving the background color. So you may have noticed the background color here isn't that great. You know, the theming on my laptop just kind of makes it look a bit weird. So we can actually go and say BG for background color, and we can put in I believe this is called hex, the decimal value, I'm not quite sure. But then we can just go, let's say F00, which should be red. So you give it a red background. And there we go, now there's a red background. If you type like that, as you can see, it's red. But now the white text on this red background is a little bit difficult to see. So wouldn't it be better if we changed the text a different color as well? And that's where the foreground comes in. And we can change the text color to hashtag, let's see, red, green, blue. Okay, so this is going to be blue. So the text is going to be blue on it. So if we go here, as you can see, it is blue, and that's actually more difficult to see. But you get the point. Foreground changes the text color, background changes the input color. So maybe you'd like to have a white input, which would be 3 Fs, and run it. And there we go. Now there's a white input, and cool. So let's quickly go through what that is. What are these? Basically, it's RGB. So you have RGB, which is red, green, blue. You know, RGB keyboards, RGB mouses, all of these things these days. So hashtag, and then 0 would be black. So 000, that's black. That means none of that color is in it. F is the highest they can go. That means all of that color is in it. So FFF would be white, because all red with all green with all blue would generate white. So red, green, blue, this means this would be red, because red is at its fullest and the rest are at 0. They don't give any blue or green off. And so you can go from 0 to all the way to 9. So you have your 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you know, you get the points. You can go all the way to 9, and then you start with A, B, C, D, E, F, and there we go. So you have all of these at your disposal to change it as you need. So here is the lightest, here is the darkest. That means nothing, this means everything. So yeah, that's the basics on it. I would recommend you go read up on it if you want to know more. But yeah, so this is the basics of inputs in Tkinter. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed and can now finally get user input in Tkinter. And I'll see you all again in the next tutorial.